The UFC is filled with some of the most unique and talented athletes in the world. And amongst these athletes is one human that really stands out. I'm talking about a man who sleeps on wooden floors, meditates in the deep forest, swims under Antarctic lakes, and even locks himself in dark rooms for days on end. That's right. Today, I will be telling you the story of the UFC's samurai, Jiri Prochazka. Jiri Prochazka was born in the Czech Republic on the 14th of October, 1992. Jiri grew up in the small town of Hosteradice. Now, Hosteradice wasn't a big town at all. Actually, it was in fact a very small village. A village with history dating back to the early 1200s. Now, Jiri's homeland, just like him, was extremely unique, and it was truly a quiet place to live. I mean, even to this day, Hosteradice only has a population of approximately 1,678 people. So as you can imagine, growing up in a place like this, well, it must have been pretty peaceful. With a village so quiet and with a village that is so disconnected from the outside world, surely this must have been a quiet and relaxing upbringing. Well, unfortunately for Jiri, this wasn't the case at all. You see, at the age of 6, a young Jiri was faced with a tragedy that everyone fears most. And that fear is the loss of a family member. And specifically for Jiri, the loss of his father. Now, some of you might know what this feels like, and as my own father worsens in health and grows in age, I can only imagine what this would begin to feel like. And for Jiri, the hardship and pain that came alongside this, I imagine was almost indescribable. And I think it's safe to say that as a 6-year-old, having this happen to you, well, life would never be the same again. And so now that we know a little bit more about Jiri's upbringing, I feel this will help paint the picture in the future of why Jiri is the way he is today, and why it is from an early age that he was so different. So with this being the case, Jiri had to figure things out on his own. You know, whether that be discipline, mental toughness, independence, whatever it was. These were things that Jiri would eventually have to seek out and learn on his own. But you see, Jiri was, well, young? Stupid? No, Jiri was chaos. You see, as a teenager, Jiri had yet to become a martial artist. That means Jiri didn't have the control or the patience or the discipline that comes with that art. I mean, Jiri was just a young kid like you or I. But Jiri was, well, a young kid that loved to fight. As a teen, Jiri was in street fights almost weekly, getting into more than 100 of them throughout his adolescent years. While I was there watching SpongeBob, Jiri was out in the streets throwing that patented, hands-down, spinning elbow of doom. The teenagers of Jiri's village had no idea what was coming. Now, obviously, Jiri couldn't just go on fighting people forever. This is how you either end up dead or in jail. And so a young Jiri had to make a change. After all of these fights, Jiri would eventually find himself situated on the doorstep of the Hooligan Club, a club that was deeply tied to his football team. And this is where it all changed. Jiri would use this opportunity to take part in organized group street fights. 5-on-5, 10 versus 10, even sometimes 30-on-30 brawls. It was pure chaos. Wait, didn't you say that he made a change for the better? Oh yeah, I did. But that change came later. For now, Jiri was still beating off football members. Hey, yo, what the f— One day before starting high school though, all of this would eventually come full circle. After all of these brawls that Jiri had participated in, he would finally encounter some real martial arts. On the way home from school one day, a close friend of Jiri's showed him a particular video. A video of Fedor Emelianenko. Jiri thought this violence was beautiful, but funnily enough, it wasn't the push that actually got him into martial arts. The final push that got Jiri into martial arts was in fact the film Never Back Down. Never Back Down, as some of you know, was one of the best, if not the best, fight films we had in the early 2000s. It was after watching this movie that Jiri decided to train in martial arts, and in particular, Thai boxing. This is where Jiri would hone in on his skills in the hyperbolic Thai chamber for years and years. He spent so long in there, only to come out in the year of 2012. And this is where Jiri would make his professional MMA debut. Gladiator Fighting Championship at the time was the biggest promotion in his native Czech Republic. He would take all of those skills in which he had learnt whilst training and amass a record of 7-2. Jiri would continue training like the madman that he is, and non-stop, Jiri trained. Jiri was dedicated to this and nothing but this. And it was finally time for Jiri to taste what it's like to be a champion. In his 10th professional bout, Jiri won the inaugural GCF Light Heavyweight Championship. The fight he had against the Czech Republic pioneer Martin Solk was an intense one where Jiri would win in standard Jiri fashion. That's right, a flying knee knockout. A knockout in which the video of that bout would go viral. It went so viral and was so loved that the fight was even later awarded with the title of the Czech Fight of the Year. After this, Jiri was well and truly on the MMA radar. Jiri would continue with this momentum in his career and defend his title against Thomas Pence. Also, in typical Jiri fashion, he sat there and thought, how do I say, impress the men from my village. I use flying knee, let's go for that. And that's exactly what Jiri did. He sent a flying knee just 41 seconds into the fight, sending Thomas the Tank Engine into the Shadow Realm. After this, Jiri was really a star in his own way. Yes, he wasn't in the UFC yet, but he was now being acknowledged by bigger fight promotions. Enter Rizin. Rizin, which at the time was huge compared to these other promotions, reached out and wanted Jiri on board. And whilst all this would happen, Jiri would even pick up another win. And so let me paint the picture for you here. Here we are only 3 years into Jiri's career. He's already deleted 14 opponents, and he is now signed with the huge promotion Rizin. And this is just the beginning. Welcome to the Jiri Rizin era. Jiri made his professional debut in Rizin against Satoshi Ishii on the 29th of December 2015. He would be fighting in the Grand Prix 100 kilo tournament. This is a tournament where he would enter multiple fights, and again, in Jiri fashion, it was knockouts galore. Boom, bang, boom. Jiri was on top and dominating once again. And life was good at Rizin. And Jiri's career, it was off to an amazing start. But you see, unfortunately for Jiri, it wasn't always rainbows and good times in the village. On the 25th of September 2016, Jiri suffered a serious knee injury. And unfortunately, due to this injury, Jiri was subsequently pulled from the tournament. Now, obviously being injured, and quite a serious injury at that, Jiri would need time out of the cage. But all Jiri had known for the last 4 years was fighting. He had dedicated all of his time to this, and now he was left unable to do the thing that he does. There was no more, let's go for that. There was only time to sit on the couch. And so this is where Jiri had the opportunity and the chance to work on himself. And as you guys know, Jiri isn't the type of guy who's going to sit there and let something like this defeat him. And funnily enough, it was around this time that he found something that would change his life. It was around this time that Jiri found a book called The 5 Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. Yuri, after reading this literature, became obsessed with the samurai code of Bushido. He would adapt and adopt and mold these principles into his life. And the principles and philosophy that he would learn from this book would not only better himself, but eventually also better people of the future to come. But that's spoilers. We're not there yet. Now, post-injury, Yuri would return an even stronger animal. From the year 2017 to 2019, Yuri would continue to dominate all of his opponents. Armed with this new samurai knowledge and unpredictable style, Yuri would go on to win his next 5 fights, all of which were won in the first round. Yuri had truly returned. He had come back stronger than ever, and there wasn't a man alive in these organizations that could stop him. And honestly, this was just the beginning of the new Berserker Yuri. Next up, Yuri would face Muhammad Lawal. Now, Lawal was a previous opponent that Yuri had originally lost to. But you see, this time, well, Yuri wouldn't just win. He would make sure to knock him out in the 3rd round. All just to taste that sweet revenge. Now, after this fight, Yuri would again quickly punish and dominate his next 2 opponents, of course, in the 1st round, proving that, okay, this man needs a change. We need to get this guy a real challenge, and we need to get him a platform in which we can truly showcase his samurai way. And so after this last fight with Rizin, Yuri's contract eventually came to an end. And this is where we would all be blessed. Blessed with a new fighter in the UFC. A contender who would turn out to be the most loved and one of the most exciting UFC fighters of all time. Yuri was on a tear in the UFC. We had never seen a fighter like this. Someone who was so durable, so powerful, yet at the same time, so goddamn awkward and unpredictable. Yuri would knock out his first 2 high-ranking opponents in the UFC, one being Volkan Oezdemir and the other being Dominic Reyes. And these weren't just 2 schmucks. These are 2 very well-known light heavyweight contenders, and one of them being a former title challenger, Dominic Reyes. And these fights weren't just quick knockouts. These were electric. And the spinning elbow knockout that was in the Reyes fight still is one of the most devastating knockouts in UFC history. So not only was it exciting for us fans to have a fighter like this, it was also exciting for the UFC. And it was so exciting for the UFC that they said, what was the question? Jiri Prochazka, what? Yeah, that kid's awesome. Get him a title shot. It was in fact so exciting for the UFC that they gave Yuri the true shot. A shot at the light heavyweight title. The UFC Championship is the pinnacle of talent. Only the best of the best can make their way to this title, let alone win it. But on the 12th of June, 2022, Yuri would awaken the samurai within and do everything in his power to show that he was no longer the scared young boy in his village. No longer was Yuri this reckless teen fighting in the streets. It was time to show the world that he was the best light heavyweight fighter in the world. In one of the best back and forth fights I've ever seen, Yuri would come out on top and submit Glover Teixeira, something that no one had done up to this point in time. Yuri showed the world what true warrior spirit is, and he realized his dream of becoming the best fighter in the world. But you see, with this high had to come a destructive low. And unfortunately, this high could only last for so long. Jiri would suffer a potentially career-altering injury, one that would take him out of the octagon for a year. After tearing ligaments in a wrestling accident, Jiri Prochazka has vacated the UFC light heavyweight title. He will undergo surgery and rehab and look to return for his next fight at UFC 295. Fast forwarding into the future, finally the day had come where Jiri had completed his rehab. He had finished his camp, he had finalized it, and he'd built back the strength in order to return to his championship belt. Or so he thought. Whilst Jiri was coming up the ranks, and whilst Jiri was injured and healing, so too had a devastating force been building. This devastating power was hidden in the middleweight division, and it would soon be a force that would collide with our samurai to see who is the real god amongst humans. On the 11th of November 2023, Jiri and Alex Pereira would stare at each other. These two titans would battle in one of the most tense UFC fights ever. And unfortunately for Jiri, the jungle voodoo magic of Alex would be all too much. Heartbroken, us UFC fans had to watch our beloved ex-UFC champion be destroyed by Alex left hook Pereira. It was something that we weren't used to seeing. You see, usually it was Jiri leaving his opponents unconscious. And so to see our samurai like this himself was really heartbreaking. But again, this is Jiri Prochazka we're talking about. This man doesn't just take a loss in life and go crawl into a corner. Every time this man experiences a loss, he comes back stronger. Jiri would continue training and refuse to take a step back. And during this period, he was forced to improve even more. All of a sudden, Jiri was feinting and setting up shots. He was pulling, pushing, moving his head off the center line and honing in on all the basics that we're used to seeing, all whilst executing his usual game plan like the madman that he is. The loss that he had to Alex had evolved him into a new animal, one that was ready to take on anyone. And so after demolishing Alexander Rakic at UFC 300, he would step up again once more to take on the Titan of the light heavyweight. Long story short, Alex floored him again. Oh god, Jiri, fuck. Heartbroken again, it was clear that Pereira truly was the kryptonite of Jiri. Alex just seemed to have the technique and power to stop Jiri in his tracks. Usually, Jiri gets a little bit hurt in a fight, he turns on berserker mode, and then he can go ahead and finish you. But with Alex, he was stopped in his tracks right there with the power that was coming back to him. And so, for Jiri, it was back to the drawing board once again. These losses were extremely hard on Jiri, and if he couldn't beat the champion, what should he do? Should Jiri the Samurai just be here for entertaining fights? Should he be here as the gatekeeper to the top 5? Or should he just retire forever? The answer is none of the above. Jiri evolved even more. Jiri would go on to fight Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, two of the best current light heavyweight contenders on the roster. Jiri would beat down Jamal with ease, and he showed in these two fights that what he'd learnt against Alex would turn him into a true demon of the sport. After destroying Jamal, Jiri would fight Khalil in a fight that would have all UFC fans worldwide on the edge of their seat. And not in a good way. Jiri was being pieced up for the first 2 to 3 rounds, and fans worldwide were extremely worried for him. Khalil looked extremely fast, and Jiri looked like a shell of his former self. But then something crazy happened. Jiri took all of the pain, all of the punishment. He entered a flow state, and similar to the Alex vs Ankalaev fight, he distributed one of the most brutal beatdowns we have ever seen. Jiri was back, and it was more clear than ever that no one else but him was deserving for the championship. The only problem was that Alex Pereira was still a king. But then all of a sudden, the UFC landscape would be shaken up. We would get an announcement that Jiri fans loved to hear. Alex Pereira was moving up to fight Cyril Gane in the heavyweight division. And not only that, he was relinquishing his belt. And you know what that means, baby. The light heavyweight title is now within Jiri's grasp. He will be fighting Carlos Olberg, a master kickboxer with brutal counter-striking, and he is going to have to fight the new and improved Samurai. A man who refuses to back down, a man who presses forward, and a man who finishes or gets finished. And not only that, it's this week. Guys, this is where the Jiri Prochazka title reign starts again. Jiri, congratulations on your newborn child. Congratulations on winning the light heavyweight title once again. I can already predict it. I already know what's happened. And from all UFC fans and myself, we love you. We appreciate you more than you will ever know. And guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you very much for staying to the end. If you like this style, this is pretty much all I'm going to be doing moving forward. This and some live streams. So if you enjoyed it, smack the shit out of the like button, smack the shit out of the subscribe button, and I'll be seeing you soon for a new upload. Let's go for that.